And here we go. Welcome to the 2024 UCLA Devil's Punchbowl Road Race. And this category is for Masters 35 Plus, and it's the 4-5 race. So, you can see that we just got started. So, right at that bend, we made that little turn right onto the course. And I'm in third position right now. So, I was actually lined up right at the front of the line. And I didn't want to be on the front because of the incidents that happened last time. But here again, I find myself third wheel, just like my last road race, which was the Rosina Ranch road race. Now, this time around, I'm going to take a completely different approach because I know what happened last time. I ended up too close to the front. I ended up having to go up a hill as I was in the lead position, and that completely toasted me for the rest of the ride, and I was not able to stay on the group for the whole first lap, which was a 2-mile lap. So here I am taking a completely different strategy. I'm not trying to be on the front, so here I'm doing 150 watts or so, just trying to chill behind these guys because we are about to go up like a 5-mile climb. Okay, this is a beast of a climb. So let me actually tell you about the route. It's a 12.5-mile loop, and each lap has about 1,500 feet of elevation gain. So if you look at the top of the screen there, that shows a profile of the course for the day. And so quite a bit of climbing there. It was brutal. It hurt. But here we are, about 2 minutes into the race, and I'm doing pretty good. I'm holding my spot. I'm not killing myself over anything. I'm just trying to stick with these guys. I'm just trying to ride the wheels and see how far this can take me. I'm completely aware that I might not make it to the top with the group. But what I'm hoping is that even if I'm not with the front pack, I'll at least have a little trailing group to stick with throughout the course. So we actually haven't hit the climb yet. So this is still pretty flat right here. It's flat for the first mile, and then after the first mile, that's when it starts to kick up, which I think it hits. I think it's average around 5 to 5.9% grade once the hill starts going up. So you can actually see that it's starting to go up in the top right-hand corner of the screen. You see the percent grade, and you see a little pink there. That's the incline. So it's slowly going up a little bit, and you see my watts going up also. I was in the 300 range there, and now I'm in the 400. I hit 5 there for just a second, and so there's people coming up on my left, so I'm going to work into this just like a normal rotation. And so the right line seems to be the one, the line that's going backwards in the group. And so when I get to the end of the group, I'm just going to move over to the left and start rotating back up. That's the plan, at least. And so I'm also trying to keep an eye on any gaps that there might be, because if I see any gaps, then I'm going to want to squeeze in there, because I don't want to be on the back and end up having the field split, and then I'm on the back of a group that didn't stay with the leaders, but could have. And so this guy right here, this Amgen guy, all right, I see a little gap between him and the guy behind him. So I slide over, I jump on his wheel, and I soon will find out exactly why that gap was there. I thought I was making a nice little movement there to get on this guy's wheel, but in the end, you're gonna see that this didn't quite work out for me. Okay, I think I'm just gonna give you the spoiler alert here. So this guy actually ended up winning the race. So I'm on the wheel of the guy who was going to win the race, and so the reason that there was a gap there was because he gapped the guy that was trailing him. And you can see that I'm doing 350 watts right now. My heart rate is at 169, and so I'm pushing it pretty hard. 169 is on the upper hand for me, so I can hold 169 for a little while on the heart rate, but it starts to hurt, and if I do it too long, then my heart rate does not recover as fast enough. And so there you can see that I'm in the 300 watt range for a decent amount of time there, up in the 400 range. So I'm going pretty hard. I'm digging deep. You can see that the grade is at a 6%, 7% right here, and this is where he leaves me. I can't keep doing it. My heart rate's up to 171 now, and the watts are still there, and I just have to let him go. And I feel a little bit bad because there's guys behind me, and I'm letting this gap go, but you see that they're not doing much either. And that Amgen guy, man, he got out of the saddle on the 9% grade, which is at right now, and he just starts pumping up to reach that guy that's in the lead right there. So anyway, these guys come past me, and I jump on their wheel, and I'm doing okay. My heart rate's up to 172 there, and I'm still doing 300 watts. So I'm still working very hard. It's not getting any easier. And the grade is at least down to 6% now, which it was at 9% before. So I'm trying my hardest just to stay on these guys' wheels and make it as far up this climb as I can. And on the map that you see at the top of the screen there, you can see that I'm only about not even halfway up this hill. So I decided that I cannot do it anymore, and I let them go. This guy passes me, and I'm trying to stick him, and there's one more guy that back there behind me. So this guy, his name's Rashad. I was chatting him with a little bit through Strava after the race. He seems like a cool guy, but there's a gap between me and him, and then a gap between him and the rest of the bigger group of the field. And so I was like, man, if I could keep him close enough, bridge the gap up to him, then maybe we could work together and do something and possibly reach that next group up there. But looking at the profile of the map, man, we still have a lot of climbing just for this one lap, and there's no breaks in between. So I realized that fantasy was not going to come to fruition. So I'm doing my best to keep a reasonable distance behind him. I'm also looking behind me to see where the guy is at that is off the back of me even further. And so I'm kind of right there in the middle of the two of them. So I'm kind of playing with that, trying to figure out where I want to go from here, and also deciding, like, do I really want to be a road racer? Okay, so this was the real thought that was going through my mind right here. And so I have to be real here. That was the real thought. I really was not sure if I was going to even want to finish this ride because I was feeling so miserable already right up front. And so I don't know if you saw that street that I passed just a minute ago. So we passed the street sign, and before the race, my warm-up was up to that sign and back. So it was 2 miles out and then 2 miles back. So I got a 4-mile warm-up, and it included that pretty good climb. And you could see that the grade is still at 8%. So I was hoping, when I pre-rode, that little section of the course, I was hoping that after I got past that sign, it might level off. I couldn't really tell how far the road went with the climb. I knew that there was a couple miles of climbing because I had looked at the route, and I had looked at the profile of the route, but I had not actually driven the road, and I think that probably would have helped. But here you see I'm catching Rashad, and so I actually see the rest of that group up there in the distance, and I think I was being a realist, and I realized that we weren't going to be able to catch up to them just based on how I was feeling myself. But they're not super far away. I felt like it was possible that they might slow down, considering that we're only halfway up that first climb. And so I was hopeful, but not really expecting much. And so here I am. I'm just riding on this guy's back wheel, and even with that, I'm still in the 200-300 watt range, and the grade is not giving up. Like, the percentages are not going down at all. They're just maintaining there right between like 6 and 7%. And so it's hurting. At this point, I'm thinking time trial, like, what could I actually do, and how much is it actually helping me being on this guy's wheel? Am I getting any draft really? And at 7 miles per hour, I don't think I'm getting much draft. It's more of a pace. So he is pacing me, which is good. But there you see, he even gapped me a little bit. So let's actually change gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about nutrition. So this race was at 8:10 in the morning. All right, it's in Pearblossom, which is off the 138, and I live in Moreno Valley, so it took me about an hour and 10 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes to get here in the morning. And so I had to leave my house at 6 a.m. and on a Saturday there was no traffic, so I got here, in about that amount of time. I had eaten a big bowl of cereal before I left, and so that was going to tide me over, but I felt like I might need a little bit of food before the race since it was such a far drive. And so I brought one of those waffles, the honey waffles, and then I also brought a gel. It's the char gel, and so 45 grams of carbs there, 20 grams of carbs in the waffle. And so I was just going to see how I was feeling as far as hunger goes, and I was getting a little bit hungry actually leading up to the beginning of the race. So as soon as I finished my warm-up, then I took like 2/3 of my gel, and so that gave me probably about 30 grams of carbs. And that is very easily digestible, so it didn't weigh me down at all. I felt great. I had one water bottle on my bike, and so that was pretty nice because I didn't have to weigh my bike down by packing tons of water on here. It's the beginning of March, you could see the snow on the mountains, and so I wasn't too worried about dehydration this early in the morning. It was going to be nice and cool. I actually brought a little bit too much warm gear. I brought a base layer, I was wearing my long sleeve jersey, and then I also had a thermal vest. And so when I did my pre-ride, my little warm-up, I was like, oh man, it's nice and brisk and cool outside, but this is going to get hot. And so when I took my base layer off, I wore only my long sleeve jersey the entire time, and I didn't sweat too much. I wasn't cold at all, ever, and it just it felt good. It felt perfect with just the long sleeve jersey. Now, had it been any other month of the year, or even just a month from now into the future, I'm sure this place would be blazing hot. And so actually the reason that I chose the Masters ride, the 4-5 race, was because there's also a Cat 5 race that was going to be at like 2:30 in the afternoon. And I was like, let me see here, 2:30 in the afternoon, full sun, or 8:10 in the morning when it's going to be nice and cool and probably a little bit chillier than I wanted. So I opted for the early morning ride rather than the afternoon race, that is, and I'm glad that I did. I was a little bit worried actually about racing with the 4s. Actually, I need to check out that 5 race to see how people did on that one, because maybe I would have been a little bit stronger in the Cat 5 race. I'm not sure, but one thing is that I do not do the heat well, so I thought this race was just going to be better overall. Now, back to the race. So you can see this guy here on the left. He caught me before we made the turn, and so he caught me just a little bit before that. We made the turn, it flattened out a little bit, and actually had a slight downhill. On the profile up there at the top of the screen, you could see that there was a tiny downhill for just like 1 minute, or less than 1 minute probably, before it started kicking back up again. And so once he got on the front, I just started riding his wheel, and he pulled me all the way back up to this guy, Rashad. And so I actually ended up talking to this guy also. His name's Josh. So Josh and Rashad both are wearing Don's race team kits, and so I assume they know each other, but I guess that's not necessarily true. But anyway, I was thinking they were probably going to work together there, and I'll just ride this all the way to the top of the climb, which we're getting pretty close to the peak. And so I'm excited for that, for our first downhill coming up. And so Josh, he looks pretty solid to me. Okay, so when he was coming up, then he looked a little bit bigger, which would explain why he was behind us on that first climb. But he looks like a tank, like strong. So as he's right there in front of me, I'm like, okay, this guy's definitely heavier than me. He's got more muscle mass. He's going to descend quite a bit faster. So my goal here is just to stay on him as long as up to the top of this summit, and then I'll be able to ride with him all the way down, because I know he's going to fly down that hill way faster than I am. And you'll see what happens. I'm not going to give any spoilers on this one, because there's an interesting little commentary that we could do on that situation. Also, I noticed here that Rashad gapped us, which if he's feeling strong, then he's feeling strong. But it didn't seem like he was feeling strong up that first half of the climb. So he was a little bit back and forth, and so I actually wasn't sure if he was having the pulses in power or if I was having the pulses in power, because maybe I felt like maybe I was just going, a little bit harder, and then as soon as I would catch him, then I would, need a little bit of a break, so I'd back off a little bit, and then he would gap me again. So I was actually taking a look at my power meter the whole time, so I think I knew that it was him that was pulsing in power. But irregardless, I don't like those surges, okay? I like to stay nice, steady, even power up this whole thing, and I want to be with somebody as long as possible. And so here, that's what I'm doing. He's going up the road. I feel like he should have probably come back with us a little bit and worked together. He would have had a nice, easier ride downhill. But dang it, I don't want to give any spoilers, okay? So anyway, let's just wait and see what happens. I just want to be at the top of this hill right now, and so that we could start the descent, because I really want to analyze that a little bit, just for my own sake, but also I think it might be interesting for you guys as viewers as well. So you can see that, wow, my power's been right there in the upper 200 range for quite a while, it looks like. And you can see my beats per minute, my heart rate hasn't dropped below 165, I don't think. Maybe it did a little bit on that descent, but for the most part, I've been up in the mid to high 160s for almost this entire race. So it hasn't been a whole lot of time. It's been about 17 minutes at this point, but still 17 minutes is a long time to keep your heart rate at that. And we are so close to the top. I'm really wondering now if I'm going to recover well enough on the descent to be able to hit the next climb as hard as I would like to. So that's my goal, and so I actually want to look at the heart rate as we're going down as well. I would love it if my heart rate was down in like the 130s or so by the time we got to the bottom of the hill, but that would mean that I would probably not be pedaling a whole lot or pushing hard at all on the descent. And since I have not driven the descent, I'm not sure how good the descent is going to be for me. So I knew that it was about an average of 5%, negative 5%, and then it was also going to be about 5 miles long. So I'm banking on that, and I'm hoping that I could max out my gears and just coast down. And so here Josh, man, he got hot going up that first climb. So his vest was unzipped, and so I'm just chatting about that with him, and he was having a hard time getting his zipper zipped back up for the descent, because we're going to be going probably close to 40 miles per hour down this, and it's still early morning. I didn't get too cold, but he was probably a little bit concerned about it, and also probably wanted a little bit of the aero effect. Didn't want his vest flapping around in the wind, and so he was trying to zip up. So anyway, I took the lead here a little bit, and I think he's probably right on my wheel. And then here in just a moment, he gets his vest zipped up, and then he flies by me. And so I know what I've got to do, and so let's wait and see what happens if I could jump on his wheel. And by the way, Rashad is up the road as well. You can barely see the top of his head up there. And I'm in the 500 watt range. I see him coming. I saw his shadow up there, and so I do what I do. I jumped on that, and so whatever the power I had to do to get on his wheel, man, I did it. And so heart rate's still 161, and here my power is going to go up and down a little bit, because when I'm in this guy's draft, you can see we're going 33 miles per hour. There are times that I'll have to put down a little bit of watts to make sure that I don't get gapped, and then I'm also sitting up at times to slow down because I don't want to sail past him. I know that I am not going to descend as fast as he is. Now, I also didn't want to be a punk and be like, here, you do all the work. I just drafted you all the way up to this summit, and now we're descending, and I'm going to draft you all the way down again. Oh, here we passed Rashad. Oh, no, that's not Rashad. That was one of the women's racers. So we caught the last of the women's group, looks like, and there's Rashad right up there. But like I was saying, I kind of felt bad because I just drafted him all the way to the top, and now I'm on his wheel drafting him all the way down to the bottom. We're going 39 miles per hour, and so if this guy wants help, then I feel like it's worth it to help him. Like, he's done his diligence, and neither of us are in the race at this point, and so if he needs help, then yeah, I'm gonna help him. And then there you can see that we are coming up on Rashad. He's right there. Now if I'm him, I'm watching for this, and I would have jumped on my back wheel as hard as I can. If I've got to put out 1,000 watts to do it, then so be it. Which actually you probably couldn't put out 1,000 watts right here because we're going downhill so fast. You would be maxing out your gears and probably wouldn't be able to hit that on the negative descent, which you can see we're at a negative 8% descent right now. So that's why we're at 44 miles per hour, 45 actually, because of that grade. So we're just flying down here, and I knew exactly what was going to happen, and so here he is gapping me a little bit, and so I do not want that. And so you can see my watts went up to 800. Whatever I have to do to get on this guy's wheel, that's what I'm going to do. And so finally I reel him back in a little bit. Luckily that draft was there for, you know, I don't know how many feet that was. That was probably like 15 feet or so. But our speed got up to 45 miles per hour. Oh, there it is, 45 again. And back to 800 watts. He did a little flick of the elbow. He wanted some help, and I felt like he definitely deserved it. Okay, I didn't want to be the punk that didn't help. So anyway, I take the lead here. I'm holding about 300 watts. Actually, not even that. I'm trying to do some work, and then I've got to tuck in a little bit. And so he was on my wheel for, what was that, like 10 seconds maybe? And then all of a sudden he comes flying past me. And since I just did some work, I'm in no condition to match that power and jump on. And I tried to, but it was hurting, okay? I just couldn't do it. And you can see on the profile of the map up at the top that we're only about halfway down this hill. So this is not good at all. Alright, since he dropped me going down this hill and we still have half of the way to go, then I'm worried. I'm worried about how far ahead of me he's going to get by the time we reach the base. Alright, because once we get to the bottom, we go right back up into climbing again. And so I'm really hoping that once we get to the bottom there, that I'll have the legs and the recovery to make up the difference and close that gap. And you saw there that my camera went down to the ground a little bit. We were just going so fast that the wind just pushed the angle of the camera down, so we were looking just straight at the road there for a little while, and we still kind of are, but I think I'm raising it right here. Oh yeah, you can see it in my shadow actually. So anyway, alright, we got our camera fixed. We can see him up there, and there's another women's rider out actually. So we're going to approach that one, and there's going to be a few women that we pass throughout this next lap. And that always trips me up because when I'm looking up the road into the distance, I'm not wearing my prescription glasses, I'm wearing my Oakleys, and so I can't really see all that well, like way the heck up there, and so I just see a body riding. And so every time I saw somebody up there, I was like, oh man, I'm catching this guy. And then I get up a little bit closer, I'm like, and I realize that it's not him at all, it's one of the women's racers. And so it's a little bit disappointing, but also encouraging because I'm reeling somebody in at least. It might not be the guy that's in my race, but at least it's somebody that I'm catching up to. And then I actually started to realize how to spot him, how to spot Josh. And the way that I was doing that is because since the fields were separate, we were not allowed to work with people who were not in our race. And so every time he would come up on somebody from the women's group, or from any other group for that matter, then he would make sure not to be in the same line as them, as to not get their draft. And so he would put a lot of space to the left or to the right of the other rider. And so when that would happen, then I would know that, yeah, this guy is not working with somebody. He's not two women from the women's group. It's actually two people from two different categories. So that's how I kind of knew that, whether or not it was him. And so here we are, pretty close to the bottom, and I've got one woman in my sights up here, so I'm catching up to her. I'm probably a whole lot heavier, that's why I'm descending quite a bit faster, and I'll catch her right at about the corner. Also, though, I want to point out that my watts coming down this descent, once I was no longer with Josh, then my watts are hurting also. I'm not holding more than 200 watts really for most of this descent. I'm just trying to recover a little bit, save the legs, because I know that I have a monster hill coming right up. And so take a look at my heart rate. So my heart rate is down to 149, which is, you know, a whole lot better than it was, but not as good as I had hoped that it would be. And so actually I'm looking forward to seeing the second lap on the descent to see if my heart rate's a little bit better. I want to see if I conserve a little bit more energy on the descent on that. And we are so close to the bottom here. Man, I'm anticipating this with excitement and fear because it's gonna hurt. And so here I am catching up to this other rider, and let's see how this goes. Man, I'm nervous about it. One thing that I do have to mention about the course is that it was very clean, very nice, smooth, straight, no questions as to where to turn. The CHP were out there, and they had the corners marked, they had cones out there, and they were holding traffic as we needed to take any corners. And so it was just a really well organized course, especially since it was an open course, so there was still traffic. But for the most part, I felt very safe and very comfortable riding on these roads. So there you see, we just made that turn, and we are back onto the climb. And it starts out nice and easy, only a 2 to 3% grade, and so I start pretty strong here. I was up in the 300 watt range, up in the upper 200 watt range now, and I'm gonna just try and keep it here as long as possible. I'm getting comfortable in the saddle. I am down in the drops, and I'm just doing what I've got to do. And another thing that I have been doing a lot more is spending a lot more time out of the saddle. And so when the grades get a little bit steeper, then I try not to hesitate to pop up out of the saddle and just stretch my legs a little bit, stretch my back a little bit. Even when you're stomping on the pedals out of the saddle, like, it still feels like a little bit of relief compared to just sitting and climbing and climbing and climbing. So that was pretty nice. Although I'm at a 0% grade right here, so it's perfectly flat, and so I'm not out of the saddle at this point. I'm just sitting down, trying to tuck, get as aero as possible, and maximize my efficiency and my speed. So you can see that upper 200 watt range sure didn't last very long, did it? Because I'm in the 100 watt range now, 120, 108. Oh my goodness. And my heart rate's right around 150, and I'm actually going pretty fast right here, 20 miles per hour, so that's pretty decent on my own. As far as wind is concerned, I didn't really feel much wind at all. I felt like it was pretty neutral as far as the wind was concerned. It felt good the entire morning, I thought. So another thing that I'm doing is I'm looking up ahead. I'm seeing if I could spot Josh, and then I'm also looking behind me to see if I could spot Rashad. And I want to catch Josh and not let Rashad catch me. And so those are my new two goals right here. and I think I would be happy if I could accomplish one or both of those. And like I mentioned earlier, it's hard for me to identify people up the road as to who was who, so I saw some bodies here and there, and I was hoping that it was always him. Sometimes it was, sometimes it was not. And so I'm actually going to cut out a little chunk of this. We're going to skip to the 1 lap mark because there's not a whole lot going on between here and there. I actually don't think that I see any other humans on this stretch of the course. Okay, I cut out a huge section of the first lap, and so actually it was just the climb up to this point, and we are approaching it's where the finish line will be on the next lap. And so it's at the top of this hill, and you can see that our hill is up to 7% right here, and there's the 100-meter mark. Okay, so we just passed that sign. There's going to be another sign right up here. It's going to be the 50-meter mark. And then I know that I'm almost halfway done with this race, which it's hurting. So I'm happy about that. I'm actually a little bit disappointed about that because that means I have a whole nother lap to go. A whole big long length of climbing to go. And so here we are. The line is on the ground. You see that white line right there? And bam. Okay, so that was my first lap, which is not all the way to the starting line actually. And so the starting line is actually right over the crest of this hill. We're still at 8% on the grade, and so we're going to sneak up over the top of this and then descend down just slightly right past where we started the race at, and then we'll do it all over again. So I just want to leave the video up for that section as we descend down past the start of it, and you might actually see some other people lined up to start their race. I'm not sure, but I know that there are some juniors that ended up passing me on the second lap, so it's probably them that are lining up if there is anybody. And so here we go downhill just a little bit, and up where those cars are, that's where all those cars are parked on the left-hand side. That's the street that we started on. So let's keep it going and see if anybody's lined up at the start line. You'll see the police officers on the right-hand side directing traffic, and there's our group. Oh, nope, no group. It's just one guy. So anyway, that's back to the start of the race, and what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to stop the rest of this ride, and I'm going to jump to the descent because there's some more interesting stuff that happens on the descent. And I'm going to give you a heads up as I'm climbing up this hill. After we make the right hand turn, then there's going to be that little descent, and then we're going to keep climbing, and as we get very close to the summit, and that's where I'm going to catch Josh at. And so that's pretty exciting for me actually, that I'm going to actually end up catching him. So here we are. Okay, you can see that I caught Josh, and now I'm just riding his wheel all the way down. So this is actually after the summit, and you can see that I'm about a third of the way down the descent, and man, those numbers are dropping pretty rapidly. So anyway, we're back up to 45 miles per hour. I'm on his wheel, and he's just a tank, just cruising down this hill. He's really hauling butt going down there, and so I'm grateful that I caught him before we crested the top of that summit, because this is definitely helping out. And you see here that he gapped me a little bit, so my watts go straight up, and I maxed out at 763, it looks like there, and I got a little bit of momentum, I got a little bit of his draft, and I was able to pull back up onto his wheel. And so from here, I'm going to just keep riding back here, keep drafting, and he actually did give me an elbow flick, so I'm trying to take a pull, but I'm also thinking about what happened last time, so I'm going to do my 300 watt pull ish, I guess, and then I'm going to look for him to come around me because I know it's not going to last forever. Just like last time, I don't want to get dropped again after helping him out a little bit. And so let's see what happens here. I'm already in the front a lot longer than I was on the first lap, and so I'm pretty happy about that. I feel like maybe I am contributing just slightly, and that might be helping him out, which I really hope is the case, because I don't want to be a jerk just using his help and then never giving him any help. I feel like that's pretty jacked up, especially this late in the race when we're not catching anybody at this point. And there he goes. So here I am on the watts, and I was ready this time. I wasn't going to let the same thing happen again. I worked too hard to catch him on that second lap climb, and so I was not going to let him get away this time, and so I jumped right on there, and I think I'm going to ride this all the way down to the bottom. And then we actually ended up chatting a little bit while we rode, on the climbs anyway, and he was a pretty cool guy, so it was nice to have somebody to chat with just a little bit, but we were still pushing hard. I couldn't really keep like a conversational pace. I was still pushing pretty hard, so I would get a few words out here and there. I was able to speak just a little bit, but I wasn't completely overly taxed. I still was trying hard. I still did want to give it my best and hopefully get some PRs along the way at least. So anyway, that's what I was doing. You can see here that he gapped me a little bit, so I needed to put up a little bit of watts to regain that momentum and to get back in his slipstream. And so this is actually most of the ride for quite a bit of it. So let's fast forward up to the end of the ride, end of the race. Okay, so this looks like a pretty good place to start back up at, and I think we're about to make a turn right here, and then we'll be pretty close to our home stretch. It'll be just one more big climb up to the finish line. And so I actually want to pull up my Strava data for this race. So you can see that the race was about 25 miles and right about 3,000 feet of climbing, just under that. And I did the whole race. I started and stopped at the start and end of the race. It took me 1 hour and 31 minutes, and my average power was 217, which was actually interesting because on Training Peaks, it gave me a new 90-minute power, which was 217, and then it also gave me a new all-time peak of my 1 hour power, which was 224 watts. And so I do FTP tests every now and then, but it hurts to do the 20-minute test, and then especially if you did like an actual 1 hour power peak test. Oh man, that hurts. So my FTP right now, I believe, is right around 250, which I haven't tested for, but I estimate it to be right around there. And so to do 224 as an actual 1 hour power, I feel like that's pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with that. Also taking into consideration the huge descent. So I mean, having the huge descent in the middle of my 1 hour power peak, I don't think that helped it at all. I mean, if it would have just been flat or maybe even some climbing the entire time, then I might have been able to put out a little bit more watts, but I kind of relied on that descent to recover and to take my power a little bit easier. So that may or may not have helped my average watts. I don't know at this point. And we've got just a little bit more of this, but I'm actually going to skip up ahead to the finish line. And after I rode Josh's wheel that whole time, then he told me to go ahead and take this, so I rode up ahead. I left him just a little bit behind, and you saw the marker there for 100 meters, and here's the 50-meter mark. And so I'm going to give it one last push to get up to that finish line. And so I dig deep and I put out a really hard 400 watt sprint. I actually hit 500 a little bit. So I got my watts up just a little bit to cross the finish line, taking me about 50 meters only. And there's the results of the race. So out of 12 guys, 1 did not start. So out of 11 of us, I came in 9th place. And so Josh and Rashad were there right behind me. And I think that I was within Rashad's view of the entire race. So I think that I never really got out of sight for him. And so he told me in some Strava comments that he was chasing, he was trying to catch me, but didn't quite make it. I think it really helped out that I had Josh there to help pull me along. So anyway, this was a pretty awesome race and fun, definitely difficult. I hope that my future road races are not this difficult, that when the climb is a little bit easier, that the group stays together a little bit better, and hopefully I don't get dropped. But at least this time I had some other people to work with, and to actually, even though I didn't do a whole lot of the work, to ride with at least. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.